Welcome to Surviving Roots, the podcast where we journey through the complexities of our emotions together. I'm your host, Carrie Fund, and I'm here to guide you on a path of self-discovery, understanding, and healing. In each episode, we'll explore a range of emotions and experiences, from navigating grief and trauma to managing stress and anxiety. Through candid conversations, expert insights, and practical strategies, we'll uncover the tools you need to navigate life's emotional landscape with resilience and grace. So, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Take a deep breath. Allow yourself this time. This podcast is for you. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm chatting with Sabrina Badeaux, the owner of Kanekshun, located in Miami, Florida. With her roots in New York City, Sabrina comes from a multidisciplinary background in sales, marketing, and operations. With all the qualities of a natural-born leader, Sabrina eventually channeled her energies into the world of wellness, becoming a certified yoga teacher, sound healer, and meditation facilitator. Sabrina has always dreamed of opening a space for the community that would allow them to connect, reflect, and learn. Through the power of manifestation and perseverance, Kanekshun was brought to life in December of 2022. It's a luxury wellness sanctuary for meditation, sound healing, and movement. Welcome, Sabrina, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to chat with you. I would love to hear the story behind Kanekshun and what inspired you to start this business. If there was like a specific moment or experience that fueled this passion.
There was indeed. So in 2016 into 2017, I was going through my first divorce, and we had been together for almost 10 years, married for 5, and through various things, life, Miami, there were battles of addiction, all sorts of things. We had become disconnected and finally made the decision to part ways. And, I didn't know how to sign my name. I didn't have, you become very often as partners, right? We give up a lot, or in that compromise, we essentially lose touch of ourselves. We're not connected to ourselves. And I found these modalities, right? At the time, I had no intentions of ever teaching. These modalities were my saving grace. They, all in different ways. Some days I felt like moving my body. Some day I needed stillness. Some days I needed to come and just put pen to paper and just get everything out.
Yeah.
And so it just clicked for me in terms of more so there not being a space. Miami at the time was kind of just coming into wellness being a part of life. And I'm from New York originally, and accessibility is something that's always been really important to me. If you would have told me that I'd be teaching, sound healing and meditation when I grew up in, Spanish Harlem, I'm like, absolutely not. And, it was weird. It was, yogis were things like, my hippie mom did. Yeah. And so I was like, I knew this was, all of these modalities helped me reconnect to myself. And also in that time of grieving and working through these things, I knew I had a choice, right? And I had a choice to either wallow in that and allow my divorce to become, me, right? Like versus, labeling myself of like, this is it, or using it as an opportunity. And I reference this often, as a renaissance, right? As a renaissance to recreate, right? And as sad and sudden that the ending was, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for our time, but I'm also grateful for the platform it gave me. It gave me the opportunity to be like, I get to recreate my life when I was on another pattern. And it wasn't that path was not, at that time it fulfilled me. But when I really got to be alone and be with myself, I got to ask myself the questions. All right, well, there is no partner. You can essentially do as you wish. We didn't have children. And what do you want? Right? What do you want, kid? What do you want out of
Yeah.
this? And because finding these modalities was a little challenging in terms of either being present, having like live ones. And I found myself gravitating to a lot of old teachers in Mexico from when I used to live there, that I was like, we need this. I need this.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was almost
Sure.
selfishly of wanting to create connection and cultivate a community that would essentially also hold my hand through this. Right. And,
Yeah.
and be able to. And so divorce wasn't like kind of, it's not what I share about it, but it isn't, I didn't want that to be like the connection factor for everyone, but it was more so of how can I provide these resources in an accessible format in a way that inspires people to want to try them, right? To want to
Right.
explore them and to really experience their impact, because I wouldn't have been able to get through, that period. And sadly, I have found myself in that same set of shoes this year.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been another kind of pivot. But yeah, connection really came from my need and desire to connect with myself again, living proof that these modalities help me find my center in a time that I felt lost.
Hmm.
And I that was my North Star, was how can I provide these resources in a way that is really authentic, right? That isn't just like, I got the certificate and now I'm going to regurgitate everything I learned in a
Right.
class setting. And there's still fabulous teachers that don't need to have this pivotal life moment that happens, but that was the kind of the why. So connection started in 2017, and I did it kind of reversed. I started working with hotels and corporations first, because that's kind of where my brain.
Hmm.
I've been in sales and operations my whole
Background.
life, so that was
Yeah.
that was like my people. And I was like, if anyone needs this, it's us. Um, and then through that, really being embraced by people who wanted to go deeper and do more intimate, experiences and journeys. And then the studio came to life 2 years ago. So yeah, so it's been quite a ride, but you know, that's where it's born. That's the why.
That's a really beautiful journey. And you just said a lot of important things. First of all, you asked yourself, what do you want, kid? It's like so many times we are going through so much and we are almost in fight or flight, and we just don't stop and pause and ask ourselves, what do we want?
Yeah.
So I think that's like super important for everyone listening, that like sometimes it's not about doing more. It's just taking the time to stop and actually allowing yourself to think, what do I want? And possibly even, it's all an inside job. Just listen to yourself. Take a second
Feel
and
it.
listen to
Yeah,
yourself and feel it.
totally.
And I love that you, you know, in that you created all of these things. I mean, this is what this podcast is really all about, turning a pain point into your potential, your power. So, and even though you're recently going through that again, you said, I mean, look at all of the tools. I mean, how
Yeah.
do you compare the second experience to the first? I mean, who
I
you
know,
are
I
now,
know.
who Sabrina
It's
is now,
crazy.
and who she was.
I mean, obviously there were moments of like, WTF,
Well,
like
of
why, like,
course.
like,
Yeah.
like, seriously, we're here again. But one of the things that I'm committed to is I refuse to live in regret, right?
Yeah,
And
of
so,
course.
my current ex-husband and I have a beautiful 17-year story. And there was always this like, what if, right? Like, what
Hmm.
if, 2005, we would have taken, the different path, right? Like,
Yeah.
turn to page 19 if you want, so and so to get
Yeah.
together and so forth. And we just never did that. And there was always that. And we had a beautiful connection. But yeah, the first divorce, I was much younger. It was abrupt.
Hmm.
There was betrayal. There was a lot of heavier, darker things. Anyone who has ever been in a family where there's addiction, is,
Yeah.
there's a lot of blame. There's a lot of questioning whether you were, the cause, you weren't enough, you couldn't help. This one, I think, we both took a stance. We're both older, and we both took a stance for our happiness. And I would say that, he wasn't necessarily ready to make that decision. He was definitely teetering on, will this make us happier?
Mm-hmm.
And I very much took a stance for my happiness, right? And that, as hard as goodbyes are, um, we only have one chance at this. We only have one
Yeah.
journey, and it had become, we're strangers living together, and it had become really difficult, and it was affecting a lot of things, and I noticed that both of our lights were dim, and we both, I took a stand. I took a stand for my life, and again, that moment of like, what do you want, right?
Yeah.
What do you want? And there are, my grandmother raised me, and she would say often, it's sometimes it's better to be alone and then in bad company. And it wasn't, these, I hope that we can be dear friends once the dust settles, but the it was really that it was, where this what we had envisioned isn't right. And like it's
Mm-hmm.
like any goal, anything you manifest, sometimes when you put it down on paper, it's like this is perfect.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you're in the work and you're
Yeah.
living it, you're like, wait, what? You do what with your toothbrush? Like, hold on. And just things happen when you live in the same country again and all these different things. And so, the difference is, the same tools, same resources. Uh, I've leveled up my business, since we've separated. We separated earlier this year. And so almost kind of similar. And the similarity
Mm-hmm.
is that, that my work, my community, in the beginning I was creating it. So it was
Yeah.
beautiful to like have that connection. But now I had this foundation, right? And I was like, I have to show up for these people, but also share that like despite having all these resources, I have days that suck,
Yeah.
and there's days that I'm going to let myself cry and feel it, because then I need to come to my body and say, okay, like, do we have a choice here? Do we going
Yeah.
to continue feeling this way, or are we
Yeah.
going to move forward
Yeah.
and realize that endings are necessary in order for new things to begin,
And you're
and so
human. I
yeah,
mean, that's the thing.
totally.
You can, you're moving forward, you're working on yourself, you're using your power, it's all becoming this potential. But at the end of the day, it's like with anything. Like I tell people who really suffer with like perfect mom syndrome, at the end of the day, you're still human. Like if
100%.
you don't yell at your kid, I sort of think something's wrong with you. Like we're all still human, but I mean the difference between like being a toxic person and a healthy person is that you can reflect, you have self-awareness, you can say
100%.
you're sorry, you know what's your responsibility and what's not. So, I mean, we're all still human at the end of the day, no matter
Totally.
how
Yeah.
much growth we have, and we're on this journey. Let's
Yeah. And
just
so
normalize the fact that we're human.
humanizing, totally. Like, like I was like,
Yeah.
I'm the most unflexible yogi on the planet. Right. And that was
Mhm.
always something for me too, is that like, I've had a back injury for 10 years. I've never been able to do an inversion. Like, and I've had, so even other teachers be like, oh, wait, but, you know, you should be doing, and I'm like, who
Yeah.
says that?
Who
This
says?
is my yoga. This is
Yeah.
my practice. This is, and so, and some days it's going to be pretty and swan
Yeah.
like, and some days I'm going to look like a, brand new baby giraffe as
But
I
you're showing up
move
and you're doing
through.
it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
by the way, who is they? Like they
I
say
know.
you what is this whole
It's
thing?
crazy.
I don't know how
Totally.
I grew up my whole life saying, well, they probably think this, they probably think that. And then one day you really stop again, and instead of asking yourself the question, you ask, the God
Who's
or the
assigned?
universe,
Who's
who
assigned
is
me?
they? How do
Mhm.
they even know what I'm doing? Um, One thing I loved reading is that you speak about light, is that you say that your North Star is the question, what impact will I make today? And I just think that's so beautiful. Um, does it change does it change daily a lot, or do you have like one goal that you really wake up every day and like that's your mission?
I mean, full personal goal is to savor life,
Yeah.
is to really, really live this fully, all the rides, right?
Yeah.
Feel all the feels. Um, you know, I was fortunate. I grew up in New York City, so you start life early, you start working
Yeah.
sooner there, right? It's kind of part of the grind.
Yeah.
And so, in my 20s, I was leading huge groups. I worked for the Gap for almost 9 years, and um, it, the a lighthouse, right? Like that was
Mhm.
always the what I referenced as is, great leaders provide the illumination needed, right?
Mhm.
For teams to be empowered to do and really take on fully their skill sets. Managers, for my mind, dictate, right? They're like, give you
Right.
tasks, check off, they nano manage you, all those things. And so using that as my compass with connection is, I don't reference myself as a sound healer because I wish, but I don't come from a lineage of healers.
Mhm.
And I'm a facilitator. I provide illumination. I provide light
Oh,
in the
yeah.
resources that we carry, right? We have
Yeah.
the power of breath. We have the ability to move our body. You can put pen to paper and thoughts. You can have conversations. You can cry. You can feel. And sometimes, because of the days and all these other expectations that we create for ourselves, these roadblocks, we forget that, right?
Mhm.
We forget it. We forget it, or we get so in, our routine that there's these literally like dark sunglasses. And so sometimes you need a little someone to come in with a flashlight. Sometimes I'm a little more graceful than others, but uh, you know, that's my why. That's my why is if I can give you a glimpse of whatever it is you're seeking and that it's inwards, right?
Mhm.
Especially, I grew up in at the time in Spanish Harlem when it wasn't cool to live there and in the 80s and I've seen a lot of addictions. I've seen a lot of lives ended and or just changed because of choices, right? Of
Right.
numbing themselves or in search of an answer by using, substances
Yeah.
and, you know, all of these modalities showed me that you don't need it, right? You don't need it. I mean, a breathwork class is like one of the most gnarliest trips I've ever had, and
Yeah.
so and these awakenings that so many people search for in other ways. And so yeah, for me it's what impact, obviously, first and foremost, how am I gonna like what am I gonna create for myself today, right?
Yeah.
And filling my own cup, which is kind of my daily work is reminding myself to fill my own cup and what impact I want for myself. And so how am I going to maximize today, even a rest day, right? Like how
Yeah.
am I going to do all the things I love?
Yeah.
And then, really making sure that when I'm with my clients, my intention is, whatever it is they're seeking, right? Is to be able to be there, to hold space, to see them and perhaps provide that illumination that they need in order for them to find the breakthrough that they're looking for.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I want to, for people that are like not familiar with like working with sound healing and energy and things like that, I want
Mm-hmm.
to take people through connection. So like they show up.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into like when you walk through those doors, I just need to really compliment you and also laugh at myself. Connection, the way you spell it is absolutely brilliant. It's Kanekshun. And for about 2 weeks, I've been trying to sound this out like Kanekshun or King.
Totally.
And I'm like, wow, this is so creative and fancy. And how the hell do you pronounce this? And then just before we met today, I was like sounding it out, trying to get it right. And it just hit me connection. I'm a highly educated individual, and I can't believe that just connected, literally. But it's just brilliant. I just had to tell everybody that. So when you're reading about this,
Thanks.
it's connection
I know.
if
I
you
mean,
don't get
the
it.
marketing background of me is like, technically, like, this is a major faux pas. Like, it should be really easy. But I also love, like, the amount of times I have
Oh,
this conversation and this
yeah.
giggle and this, like, aha moment. Part of my elevator pitch, like at our big events, and I'm like,
Yeah.
connection. It's the word
Yeah.
connection spelled phonetically. And you
Yeah.
see, like, the sea of people, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no one was here to
Um,
witness it connect for me, but I was like, oh my gosh, I find this is amazing.
yeah.
It really is. And when I was looking at all of the services on your website, like take me through it. Like I show up like for people who don't really understand like what you were saying, so many people, and I used to do this all the time too until about a couple years ago. I really started diving into my own healing, like proper healing, like getting really honest with myself and realizing that it's an inside job. And I know we all hear that a lot, but I mean, everything we really need is inside of us.
Hmm.
and not looking for things externally, whether it's, numbing or validation or love from others, like really,
Yeah,
looking inward. We are so powerful. And all of the tools and services that you teach and offer are things that I actually started leaning into a couple years ago. And
I
it
love
really
that.
taught me that like silence, like when you really take a moment to like close your effing eyes and listen to yourself and start working on your intuition, and like your inner voice gets so strong, and that way you don't even hear your critics so much anymore.
Totally.
Again, we're all human and mine shows up.
It's still there. They're
It's
still
still
there.
there,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
can
yeah,
now tell it to like shut the hell
yeah.
up. Like I got
Totally.
this or something. I can give myself a pep talk and
Facts.
possibly start, reminding myself to believe in myself. But walk us through those doors. Like, if it's your first experience at Connection with
Yeah. So
Sabrina.
part of it is I get bored. There's a couple of things. One, I get bored easily.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I want to like reinvent myself, open up another business. I'm like a serial entrepreneur. And then I don't believe, or for me, I didn't find it to be like a one size fit all. Like it wasn't like every day I need to do yoga and
Okay.
every day, there are certain things like I do journal every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get attached to the time of day because my like I worked till midnight last night at our full moon event, right? So like
Oh,
things
wow.
vary, and so if I tried to push myself to wake up at 5 o'clock this morning, I would be there'd be a different soul on this
Yeah.
call. Uh,
And you wouldn't even be enjoying it at that point. I think that's also a
exactly,
thing. You got to
yeah, and
enjoy
which is
it.
also
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ensure that my experiences weaved a bunch of different modalities, which I think play like a tapestry of
Mm-hmm.
these modalities that play really well together as well as are needed, right? So, like, I would walk into a sound healing class and it was like straight to sound. And I was like, I just sat in 95 for like 30 minutes. Like, you got to buy me a drink first,
Yeah. We
something. You
need
got
a
to like,
transition.
something like, like it just there was something like and so, sequencing, I think my yoga training really provided me with that, but
Mhm.
attending events and understanding like what I liked, what I didn't like, how I felt I needed to be held and seen. And so, you know, I usually always weave and start with like really simple breath work, connecting you to your body,
Mhm.
visual meditation, because if you've never meditated before, you just listen, right? You allow yourself to be guided, and that starts to kind of break the seal to allow yourself to be really fully immersed in sound. And I joke and I call it like our adult nap time, but it's powerful. And for me, my approach is very science based. I geek out on the science and planets and all of those things, and yes, it's energy, but it's pure physics. And
Mhm. Love that.
um and my personal practice, could be deemed more spiritual than what I share for connection. But again, my lens is to ensure that everyone feels really comfortable and that it's accessible and that they're willing to try it at least once.
Yeah.
And so, our classes, weave all those together. We close a little breath work, and then I always end it with either tea or mocktail, something, at our events at the
Mhm.
hotels, so that there's that connection piece, that community piece, right? Because the first piece is connect to yourself.
Mhm.
And then once you connect to yourself and you allow yourself to be seen, then the magic happens with the
Yes.
collective, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was always really important for me to do that and weave those. And our experiences are a little different. The studio is 10 people, it's in a house, magical acoustics, everything
Mhm.
is wood paneling inside. I have every instrument under the sun in there.
I love that.
um, and so those are about 60 to 75 minutes, a little longer sound baths than our hotel experiences, but the hotels are beautiful. The hotel allows me to, I kind of call it like my spiritual tasting
Mhm.
is, they get to taste a little bit, right? They get a 20-minute sound bath, they get the meditation, this, the movement, all of that. um, and then they get to decide. And now I have a space. That's really why Casa was born. Is I would have these events. We'd have 50, 60 people at these full moon events, and they're like, where do I find you? How can I do more? And it's
Yeah.
it's exhausting. I did it for a really long time. I would bring all of my things to people's homes, and it's just harder. I mean, like,
Yeah.
he's been my dog Biggie has been very good right now, but usually he's not. And so I would go to people's homes and there'd be like the dog running around, the kid, all the things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they're not getting it. They're not,
Yeah.
and so it gave me an ability to control the container and have a space for people who were interested in exploring and diving deep. And both of them have a very, their own unique communities. But my relationships with the hotels has become a beautiful filter into creating, casa and allowing people to explore these modalities, in a really comfortable setting. So whether it's my studio or aesthetics and the setting is very important to me because
Hmm.
that's like the first thing, right? Like when you walk into someone's house and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to leave, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the sensation I want, so that they are comfortable and safe, whether it's 10 people or 50 people to allow themselves to surrender and feel.
I love that. Once I started like meditating, and I'm still not like clicking with the whole yoga thing, but the sound bowl and meditating, like it's so scary at first. Like I don't know what it is. I mean, sitting
It's
still
intense.
and it's intense and you want to just run away. I did. Um, but then like once you really surrender and you get comfortable, it can be addicting. Like
It's
you
crazy. Yeah.
crave it. And
I
it's
have
just
clients that are like, I didn't see the Monday night class, Sabrina. And I was like, I'm sorry, I had full moon. And they like freak out. Like, yeah, it's wonderful. I love
it
that like, that this is the addiction.
I know exactly right. I mean, if only, as we were growing up, like if these kinds of things were taught to us. And that's why I really talk to my
Totally.
kids about it now. Like, even if it's a matter of like, if I see one being like really emotional or stressed out and I see them like starting to snack a lot, I'm like, let's just go in the backyard and sit and close our eyes
Totally.
and try to feel
Yeah.
a breeze in Miami.
Take
But
your
it's like,
shoes off.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, stand in the grass, like just take a
Yeah.
second and not react. Just
Totally.
pause.
Yeah.
These are all the things that I'm just learning in my 40s that I'm really trying to instill into my kids because I feel like,
Beautiful.
there'll be a generation one of these days where like the numbing and the addiction, hopefully, and all of those
Well,
external things to like,
exactly.
keep us in the
May
fight
not
or
go
flight.
away, but will
It might
be
not
will
go
be
away, but
minimal.
maybe we can
Exactly.
start
Yeah.
shifting and, knowing. So
Totally.
not everyone, once you get into your 30s or 40s, have to like read self-help and reparent and
Exactly.
heal. We can just spend more time
Exactly.
living our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really, the I share this a lot in terms of like why the power of stillness is so important. Like think of when you shower, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
have some of the most like brilliant ideas.
Hmm.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm always
Yeah.
like thought about, I'm like, how do I get like a really cool like notepad in here? And the reason why is because our brain is monotasking,
Hmm.
where we
Wow.
are focused on washing our hair, showering our bodies, all of these things, right? And when our brain minimizes its churning, right? That's the misconception of meditation. You don't not think, right? It's just not possible. And that's,
Right.
you don't sit without thoughts and levitate.
Right.
That takes, practices and some
Couple
only very
classes.
few exactly have
Yeah.
ever achieved that. And so, but that art of monotasking, right? It's why I use tea a lot, right? With the Japanese in terms of this really savoring and being present with one thing. And so when
Hmm.
you are present with your body and your breath and you're really listening intentionally, because listening intentionally is a whole other game, right?
Yeah.
Both awake and not awake. um that's when you get to hear the whispers. Like our body's talking to us all the time. Like
Yeah.
when I think about when I've my exit interviews of like my big corporations, one of the most consistent thing that was shared is that one of my most powerful skill sets is my intuition. I
Wow.
questioned it whether I use it in my personal life sometimes, but business wise, it seems to be on point. But it's really that awareness of listening to your body, right? And like, why when I'm around certain people, I get tightening in my chest or my
Hmm.
stomach, right? Or, like just headaches. Like our body is very, very smart.
Yeah.
And because we're constantly like we live in such an overly stimulated world right now. And this beautiful body, this computer that's designed to dance between fight or flight and rest and restore, that time, that dance is
Hmm.
really slow now. And now we're just like, you know what? I've spent a lot of time in this fight or flight. I'm just going to hang out here. Like, I'm not even going to
Hmm.
come back over here
Yeah.
because like the body then becomes like, this is our norm.
Yeah.
And then we spend so much time here that when great shit happens to us or when like we're supposed to rest, we feel guilty, and our body's like, no, this is not our norm. We don't want this. And that's the awful kind of transaction that's happening. And so showing and teaching and giving you the ability to calm your nervous system is huge, you know?
Yeah.
And when you said about like kids, like I teach courses now in sound healing for other facilitators. And when we talk about like group settings and so forth, you know, everyone's like, oh, if you're giving a speech, you know, visualize everybody naked.
Hmm.
I visualize the kids I grew up with in New York City in the 80s.
Wow.
I'm talking to that crew. And
Yeah.
so language is really important to me because like I want to relate to them. I want them to be like, yeah, I'll try this thing with crystal bowls and
Yeah.
you know, all the, you know, and breath work and all these things. Um, and so, yeah, that's, you know, the power in pause, which is whether that pause is going for a walk, you know, not necessarily
Hmm.
just being still, but when you were saying about like we're rewarded for working, for
Yeah.
overworking, for producing, for doing so much. But in that pause, I believe we provide clarity, we provide space. And in
Yeah.
that space, we get to fill it
Yeah.
with the shit that matters,
Yeah.
right? That like, but if we don't create that pause, if we don't create that space, your body becomes full
Yeah.
and and not necessarily full of things that are going to make you feel good.
And then in reality, actually sort of like hold you back and slow you down because it's interesting what you just said. I used to be probably until, I mean, I'm 46. So until like I was 43, 44, I was just like, go, 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 go. Like when it
Yeah,
came to working in corporate America, to running my own businesses, to even in my motherhood, like go, go, go. And I know now
totally.
that looking back, that's more of like a trauma response, like because when you sort of slow down and sit still, you gotta like you start to feel things. So I just
Exactly.
kept going, 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 going.
Fact.
But I don't even know how to explain this. These past 2 years, I have gotten nothing has changed in terms of like I'm a full-time mom. I have no help. I have taken on more responsibilities with my book writing and now a podcast and other projects, but I have found the time because I have slowed down and I don't even know how to really explain it, but it's like I slow down and I'm more present and it's like I'm not like weighed down by all the chaos. Like I have freed myself from the chaos and
Yeah.
maybe you can help me
The
explain this.
noise.
The
Yeah,
noise.
the noise, totally.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful. Like, you know, yesterday, like I have a team, a beautiful team. I couldn't do my big
Mhm.
events. I mean, you know, we have hundreds of rugs, cushions, sound altars. We use
Yeah.
headphones and all these things. And I laugh and I joke about it. And I'm like, it would be me to make meditation a shit ton of work. Like, I wish I could just show up with my bowls,
Yeah.
but I'm like, it's a 3 hour setup. I have a team,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
and I'm like, you know, I have this awareness because I'm like, I make things big and projects and work
Yeah.
and load, but this is different, right? Like there's love in this and
Hmm.
intention and purpose. And I'm doing this for myself and my collective versus like working really hard for other people's, you know,
Right.
businesses. Um, but still at awareness, and I'm 44 but now more so really understanding the value of time, right? And that
Yeah.
time is energy, right? And
Yeah.
how we spend it is crucial. Um, and that the rest is necessary. That slowing down, that rest, that pause is necessary for yourself in order to grow and evolve, right? It isn't that it's going to
Yeah.
stop your productivity. It's only going to catapult you more because I
Yes.
have experienced burnout, you know,
Yeah.
and often, you know, and I've had to catch myself like, okay, like although I love what I do, I need a day off, you
Yeah.
know, like, you know, and, you know, people call me like, oh, I want a private. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm available Thursday. It's like my only day off in 2 weeks, but I
Hmm.
don't want to say no to them because I
Yeah.
know that they're going, you know, they're
Yeah.
going through something. One of the first questions on my website when you sign up for a class is like, are you experiencing anything,
Yeah.
um,
It's
you know,
amazing.
heavy, traumatic, and so forth? And I'm like, oh, I have a responsibility, right? But first and foremost, I have a responsibility to take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
And so even in the mindful world, we can burn ourselves out. And so having that awareness of the power of the pause and really, you know, the noise doesn't go away. it streamlines it to a conversation, right? It's why I love journaling and I love that you're writing a book.
Yeah.
But it's 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 that silent conversation between yourself, right? And
Yeah.
it's where you get to ask those questions. And like for me, a lot of things that came up on the second divorce is a lot of inner child, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of things of like, the first man in my life, not being selected by my father, not growing up, single mom, all the things.
Hmm.
And like, how has there been a pattern in the romantic partners I've had? And in that inner child work, I'm like, I'm not gonna, I need to just talk to her
Yeah.
and ask her the questions, right? So in my meditations, in when I receive sound, um, is asking her and really feeling her. I'm like, what do you need today? Do you need a
Yeah.
hug? Do you need a cry? Do you need a sweaty dance party in the living room? Like, what do you need, kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and really asking myself that, and more so learning to not be afraid to ask that, because
Yeah.
asking myself or asking for help has always been kind of a really taboo thing
Yeah.
for me.
I can relate.
Yes. And so yeah, giving yourself, but there is discomfort in that stillness, and in when you said, that uncomfortable, like not only is it like alien sounds, right? For some people,
Yeah.
you're like, what did I sign up for? But there's physical reactions, right? Like your blood starts to move, like you feel these tingling sensations, the thoughts start racing. And it's magical, but those first couple times, especially
Hmm.
depending if you're carrying something, right?
Yeah.
Sound vibration shakes it brings it to the surface.
Yeah.
And there's choice. You either allow yourself to go to that edge, because in that edge, in that discomfort is where the magic happens, or you continue to ignore it.
Yeah.
And I can tell by people's cadence of their breath in our sessions when someone has allowed themselves to surrender to it, or they're fighting it and they're just like, when is this class going to be over? In their
Yeah.
mind, they're like, please tell me to wiggle my hands and toes, like they're
Yeah.
like waiting the countdown.
Yeah.
um and that's in anything, right? That, like when you're in a workout class, when there's going to be moments of discomfort, and there's a choice that we have, right? In
Yeah.
our relationships, in our own work, all of that. And you either front on the discomfort and ask yourself why and what's on the other side of the discomfort, or
Hmm.
you retreat and give up and continue in your same shit.
And that's where the magic I have learned really is in
Mm-hmm.
those terrifying, like uncomfortable moments. I mean, going to a private yoga class at a friend's house and sitting still and doing the breathing. And I had no idea, if someone would have told me like working and stretching your hips like would release trauma, and trauma can be
For
stored in your
women,
body.
hips,
Girl,
forget
I would
about
have
it.
never walked over to my neighbor's house. I would have been like, I'm going to go get a coffee, like have fun with your feelings, because not today.
You're
But I
like,
mean,
I'm out.
oh yeah, my hurt inner child, man. She came out screaming and I was like, "Little girl, you better go away. I've got this." But I
She's
mean,
like, it's about time.
it's about time. And once she sort of, it was like a genie out of a bottle. I mean, once she like got
Totally.
a breath, I was like, "Oh, geez." And I really started doing the work, and I was realizing all my anxiety, all my fight or flight, all my fears were really because my little kid inside of me was running my show. And I just sort of had no idea. Like, it sounds weird to say that, but this really damaged, unhealed, hurt little kid, that's the little girl inside of me, had been running my show for decades. And, once I sort of like started, talking with her, like just in my meditations and my journaling, just like, I've got this. I'm an adult. Like, I've got this. And there's nothing I can do about the past, but I'm going to use it to just propel me forward and live my best effing life, because I'm in my 40s. Like, a lot of my 20s and early 30s, well, all of my childhood and my teens and my 20s and my early 30s have just been, in trauma mode. And it's like, like you said
Yeah.
earlier, we have this one life. And it's like, at what point are you just going to be like, screw this? Like, I'm going to live my best life and I'm going to try my best and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to have lazy days. I'm going to have restful days, because we all deserve to rest. And
100%.
you gotta, I don't know, you gotta be in it to win it. And it's like, you gotta
Yeah, you
really
got
be
to give your
present.
all.
You really do.
You
Like,
got to give your all, especially in the days that are harder than others.
yeah,
And, the if fear wasn't there, I would question whether it really matters to you, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to be afraid. It's
Yeah.
also a reminder that we're alive, right?
Yeah.
But it's how you choose
Yeah.
to use that fear,
Yeah.
right? Not everything that makes you afraid is a red flag or bad, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
starting a new business, there's fear and excitement, and often they get blurred, but you need it. But you can't be afraid to live life and to fall down, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get up, right? Like it's may take you slower. You may get a little more scratches on one fall than the other. You may chip a tooth, whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
it, it's gonna, but you get up and you get up with grace and you honor that lesson and that fall, and you're like, cool, this is my bruise, this is my scar,
Yeah.
but it's not who I am. It
Right.
happened to me. It helped make who
Yeah.
we're engaging with right now. Um, but it's a proof that I lived,
Yeah.
that I lived, that I feel, that I tried. Um, and I think it's necessary to just give our all. And also recognizing in this work, right, that like my mom did the best she could too, right? Like
Yeah.
with whatever resources she had. And I also have a choice. Am I going to get hung up on the story of being raised by a single mom in New York City and not having all these things? And I'm like, yes, like all of those things occurred. And
Mm-hmm.
100% I've been operating from, trauma and choices and patterns.
Yeah.
But how do I want to move forward from that? How do I want the rest of this story to go?
Right.
And really accepting that you're the author, you
Yeah.
know?
That's the thing is we have so much power. I mean, speaking of scars, I mean, they can just be your reminders, like our reminders to like do better. And our reminders, like as we get caught up in life, because we all do, because life is moving so fast, there are reminders to do better and that we can rewrite our story. Like we're the author of our life. Like,
Totally. Every
yeah,
day,
there's no they people. There's no
and
they.
all
You know what I mean?
exactly.
You are the author of
Everyone's
your
like,
life.
you've lived so many lives,
That's
you've
beautiful.
had so many businesses, and you tried different things. And I was like, yeah. And some things went
Amazing.
great, some things no. And I love it. And also flip side of that is that because I've done so many different things, I it's very difficult for a lot of wellness facilitators to run a business.
Yeah.
There's like guilt on charging for a service that, is energy and
Yeah, that's
provides,
interesting. Yeah.
wellness and so forth. And so that's probably the biggest challenge in my coaching work that I do out of my sound healing courses for future facilitators is how do I charge?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the doctors charge us,
Yeah.
you're providing a service, and
Yeah.
in your own way you're going to become an expert and
Yeah.
of what it is you want to offer, and you can't feel bad about it. But I'm a firm believer that if you want to run a business, you need to treat it like a business,
Right.
and you need to operate it from the business lens, and it needs to be a business entity. And that's just my own personal choice, and it's how I've made the platform for Kanekshun to, I am very much right now Kanekshun in terms of, the sole facilitator.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a business. I want to be able to, spam my social media with photos of Biggie and me, eating tacos, and keep it separate from my business, and have that be its own realm, and everything else.
I love that. And you know what? You're helping so many people who will then not have to go to like these medical doctors for illnesses and disease and addictions because they're literally, it's a holistic, you know what I mean? Like it's just a
Walking through it,
different
yeah.
type of healing and health. So, yeah. What kind of dog is Biggie, by the way? I'm
He's a
dying to.
Cocker Spaniel.
Oh
I know
my gosh.
if you could see him, he's like, his head is like, I don't even know actually. His head is like off the sofa.
Oh my gosh. So
He's
cute. I was
he's 10.
imagining
He's
like,
10. So he like, and I'm like, Biggie Smalls, everyone gets all
I
like
know. I'm like, what
thinking
kind
I'm
of
like
dog
some
is this?
ferocious dog.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he looks like Lady from Lady and the Tramp. He's blonde and freckles, 30 pounds.
Um,
Uh
One thing I wanted to ask you, because when you're
yeah.
not creating all of this magic for others and your community and for yourself, I did read that you love traveling the globe on a new adventure. And I want to know so far if you could pick one place, what's been your favorite place and
Wow.
why?
Um
because I'm going to go there.
Totally. I mean, Mexico City is a very special place for me.
Okay.
It's where I started this journey.
Okay.
When I moved there in 2005, and that's where I was introduced to Kundalini and then kind of skyrocketed into everything else, breath work, all those things there. But it's one of the cities, and this is kind of taps into our slowing down conversation. It's massive. It's a massive city. Coming from New
Hmm.
York, it was like very comparable. The museums everywhere, such culture, some of the most epic food scene. And I am an absolute foodie. It's definitely my love language. And what is beautiful about Mexico is that they really embrace slow living, right? And so Mexico City has so many people, so many things going on. Like it's very similar to New York in terms of like never sleeping, but they take 2 hour lunches. Their days are longer, right? But like they enjoy their weekends, their Sundays with
Yeah.
their family, and their friends come together and they celebrate the highs and lows, right? They're, like of life, and it's in this like collective. Um and mountains are right outside. It's There's beautiful parks, and so that for me is always a place where I go recharge.
Oh,
Actually, right when we finalized our divorce, I went to Mexico this year,
okay.
um, and did half city, half mountains, and kind of reconnected to a place that fills me.
Hmm.
Um, and it also inspires me, right? Because there's like they just it's such a creator like pod, and just walk into a place and like inspiration,
Yeah.
artwork, graffiti, all the things. And so I always make it a point to attend different things and events similar to what we offer, to see, right, to experience, see what the people are offering, and to be inspired to bring things back. And but Mexico City, I would first, like, internationally, I would say that's definitely kind of a special place. And then I love Oregon.
I've
It's
never been to
it's
Oregon.
Oh, it's why I love it.
Really?
I've done
Okay.
3 road trips through the whole coast. The coast is one of a kind. Um, Underrated food scene, like Michelin, although I don't,
Really?
Michelin's not needed, but like should be there.
Yeah.
Um, Wine, like I don't drink a lot, but Pinot Noir is like
Hmm.
my absolute, and some of the best Pinot. But the food scene and the people and being near ocean and mountains, it's
Oh,
it's
wow.
wild. And it's very active, and uh, I love mountains. Mountains for whatever reason, and it's crazy. I mean, the most nature I got was Central Park,
Yeah.
growing up. But mountains is really a way that I recharge. I think it's the Pisces in me that I'm
Yeah.
enough flowy water that I need.
Yeah.
I need the grounding. But Oregon, totally underrated, and highly encourage people to go and check it out. Some of the coolest state parks, um, just mind blowing.
Wow, thank you for sharing. Note to self,
Yeah.
possibly moving to Mexico City, will visit Oregon. It's
Totally.
interesting that you say that because I grew up in West Virginia on a horse ranch and moved to New
Ah,
York
love
City
it.
at 22. Wanted to leave West Virginia behind, embraced New York City, lived there for 16 years, now in Miami. And for the past 5 years, I don't know what's shifting, but I'm just all about the mountains. Like, I want to go to
Yes,
the mountains at any trip that we take. I just need to just be in front of mountains, like
same.
surrounded by mountains. I don't know what it is,
Totally.
but sometimes
During
I
COVID,
kick.
I went to North Carolina like 6 times in my
Oh,
car. I was
yeah.
like, this is the closest mountains I can get.
I mean, I don't, what's that saying? Like, I feel like I took my whole, that part of my childhood for granted. But I was just like, wow, something I was always just wanting to run away from is something I crave so much more now
Yeah.
as an adult. But yeah, I'm definitely going to visit those places. They sound magical. Thank you so much for
Yeah. Yeah.
sharing.
Of course.
I want to thank you so much for your time today and this
Thank you. Thank
conversation.
you.
And where can everyone find you?
Um, so mostly I spend most of my time at Casa, which is our studio in Little River. And then we have events almost every week we work with the One Hotel for the last 4 years. We're at the Edition. And a lot of the hotels open up these experiences to the community, because they also want to provide a space for Miami to connect in a
Yeah.
mindful way and meet like-minded individuals. It's not an easy town
No.
to be single. Got to tell you that. So
I don't
that's
think
another
it's,
podcast.
yeah, but I don't think, I feel like, I'm happy to start seeing, I've only been here for 10 years, but I definitely the last couple of years, I'm seeing this shift towards like these kinds of ways of life and healing and
Activations, totally,
activation. So I feel like this city
totally.
definitely needs it. So I
Yeah.
love seeing that in the people that are coming into the community.
100%.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's been beautiful to witness. I've been on and off here for 15 years, and it's great to see it. And so the properties we work with are very much aligned in that. And that's also a choice in who our clients are.
yeah,
And so the One Hotel and the Addition are really around creating an environment that's comfortable, mindful, but also with fun, right? Like
yeah,
this doesn't have to be so serious. Like
yeah,
don't pressure yourself to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have the celery juice and journal and all these things, and just get to
yeah,
it. Like be consistent with the
yeah,
practice, but don't make it so rigid and make it another thing that you're going to beat
yeah,
yourself up about and then
yeah,
have to like have a conversation with your inner critic like, no girl, not
yeah.
today.
Well, I think, when you enjoy things and you actually include joy in all of those processes or, strategies or whatever, you actually
Yeah,
want to do them. So you stay, because
totally.
consistency is everything. That's the thing. It's like, this isn't like a fast. This is like your life. So if you actually just
Facts.
like stop being so rigid and like, I think you just reminded me, I haven't probably
Yeah.
had a celery juice like in 3 months, but I do journal. I do journal. I did it this like earlier, like late morning rather than like when I get up at 5, but it doesn't matter how you do it or when you do it, just do
Yeah.
it and stay
Just do it.
consistent. And it's in the
Totally.
consistency brings the joy and
A
the
hundred
the
percent.
shifts
And
and
the shift, the impact, the
yeah,
change, right?
yeah,
And joy is, I say that almost, I think I almost end, there's two things I say often that I when I end my classes, and choose joy is one of them.
I love that.
And I remind people that choosing joy is work and it's a
Yeah,
commitment, and you have to be consistent with it. You can't just choose joy when you go on vacation, right? You can't just be vacation Sabrina,
yeah,
and the reason why we love our vacations is because we change the noise,
yeah,
right? We change the everyday noise and so forth, and just do that for yourself on a daily basis. You don't have to get on a plane. Yes, if you go on a plane, go to Mexico City and have some
yeah,
wonderful tacos.
exactly.
That's different, but don't rely on that to be
Yeah,
the only time you allow yourself to pause and breathe,
yeah.
and choose joy. It's
Do you hear that,
that's all you
everyone?
got
Choose joy.
to do.
Sabrina Badeaux at Connection,
Connection.
not Kunushukan, Connection in Miami, Florida. Everybody message me. We have to go and get our energy cleared and like literally connect with Sabrina. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
again. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
having
Thank
this
you. Thank you.
conversation
Thank
with you.
you. Same. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Surviving Roots. Let's continue this conversation as a community. For more updates about the show, remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. Also, there will be some special bonus footage from the show on Instagram at carrie.fund. I'll see you there.